G'day golfers. Ever found yourself redirecting blame and making excuses after having an absolute shocker on a golf course? I know that I have. Range was closed, I was a little cold, didn't warm up, I hit it in those 3 old divots. Then we have the podcast for you. We focus on how to fundamentally own your swing. Strike it pure and consistently shoot in the 70s. Be it if you're a weekend hack, retired and playing daily, a school phenom or a tour professional. We present and discuss facts and physics pertaining to golf, trying to keep our ego and opinion at bay. We dispel myths such as keep your head down, bend your knees, or my all-time favourite, game improvement irons. So stop drinking that mythical Kool-Aid and have a sip of ours. I think you'll find it both inspiring and refreshing. I'm Scott Young, founder of Swing, PGA professional and ex-tour player. And together with physical therapist Dr. Sean Joyce, welcome to Pivot the Path. G'day golfers and welcome. SJ, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How are you?
Doing well. We narrowly escaped this big storm in the city here, so sounds like a different story for you.
Yeah, they closed the schools here in New York, but yet there's no snow.
Nothing.
But that's good. We understand that there's a lot more logistics involved, so thank you for looking after our kids. Yeah, so we actually had a pretty dodgy little drive in. It was actually snowing quite a bit up at home. It only started at 4 this morning. Started when we basically got up. So it's
so you might get what was predicted the city
6 or 7 inches, my guess.
Okay. Yeah.
Snow day for us.
Yeah.
So the kids are at home, so they're loving that. New York City snow day, they're virtual.
That's rough. I can't believe they've taken the snow day away.
There's no more sledding at Central Park. They're at school.
That's a thing of the past.
It's a thing of the
past. I'm
past.
glad that virtual option wasn't around when I was coming up.
Yeah. We're not in virtual, are we? No, we do not do virtual. So
good.
Matilda, Isabella, Valentina, and Colt are they're just chilling today.
Good for them.
Yeah.
But it's great. We got snow right now, but 2 days ago I was out playing golf. So
that is so awesome. How'd you play?
Yeah. Okay.
Talk us through it.
Didn't hit the ball great, but I had a really good strategy. There was something you had talked to me about after your trip to Stream Song in a video you sent me that just stuck with me, and I just kind of played that all day. And
which was what?
Did okay. So you sent me a video on one of those holes. There was water trouble on the right side, and you were just playing a big fade. And I think the words you said was, "We're going to start it away from trouble and turn it towards trouble."
Yeah.
And then in the video you stripe it did exactly that. And I played at Van Cortlandt Park, which anyone who's listened who's played there, it's not a very long course, a little tricky, but if you put yourself in good position, super scoreable.
Yeah.
So I was like, I had my distance. I wanted to hit the ball too, where I could just hit my comfortable wedge shot.
And where are you landing on that now? Is that pitching wedge or sand iron?
I like a 54 degree. I'll get in like the 110, 115 range.
Love it. Yep.
But it was all day, just started away from trouble, turn it back. So most of the times it worked well, and I just was confident in what I was doing every tee box. I didn't guess. I wasn't unsure every time.
So
target,
just on that,
shape,
if you've got a fairway and you think of trees on the left, fairway, trees on the right, and if on the right-hand trees it was all water, what Sean was basically saying was, and this is kind of where I think, and I remember having a chat with John Serhan. I haven't spoken to Johnny for 25 years, but we're in Eleanor Golf Club, which has lots of water in Sydney. Mm-hmm. And John and I had this great debate on, do you work the ball towards trouble or away from trouble? And objectively looking back, again, if we've got a fairway with trees on the left, water on the right, to me, you start with your club face square, which means if I start with my club face pointing at the water and I return it square, I'm going to hit it in the water. So to me, it doesn't make sense starting at trouble, moving it away.
Yeah.
It makes sense in this particular instance, starting at left trees, so your club face points to the left trees, which means you return your club face to where you started. Well, that's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And then if you open your stance, hit your little fade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I don't know exactly what the data would be behind this, but it seems more likely that the ball moves a little less than you expect it to than more.
Yeah, I think, SJ, because you now control your ball flight, you realize that it's not that hard. I mean, it's not that
you have to trust it.
That's
the hardest part. Get out of your own way.
Yeah. So
when I missed, it was just in the rough.
Yeah. Remember, you've got 60 yards or thereabouts where you can miss a golf shot. Yeah. So my point is, if you can stand on any given golf shot, other than bunkers where we get a little face changing, but if you can stand on any given golf shot and say, I need to start the ball here, point A, and I'm going to return the club face to the same point A with speed, golf's pretty simple. If you don't curve it exactly right, but you start it on your intended line, which is how you, and obviously SJ and I are going to play a lot of golf. Every time we play, we're going to say, I'm going to start this at this tree and I'm going to fade, or I'm going to start this at this house and draw it. Once you learn that controlling ball flight is really simple, golf all of a sudden is not that hard.
Yeah, and pretty fun when it works out. And then I just wasn't stressed. So I knew, all right, if I overcook this and it fades too much,
totally fine.
Or it just goes straight, I'm not worried about losing the ball. I might be in the rough, but stress-free.
And obviously the golfers listening don't know Tommy and Pat. Two Aussies.
Yeah, I was out with a couple swing members and good friends of mine.
Yeah. And Tom was the best I've seen him swing it in here.
Yeah, same with Pat out there. We had a great day because they were playing their shot, and
I get it.
And they've been in here practicing a lot lately, and you could see it on course, and they felt the difference, which was pretty cool. But I remember at the beginning, Pat was saying, he wanted to play a draw, and that's what he's been working on, but he just had a fade on Sunday.
He was probably a little tight.
And so I said, just play it. And he said, all right, and mentally made the decision to play it.
Yeah.
And all day he had just these tight little bullet fades.
And we just got him a really lovely set of non-gear effect golf clubs. He's come from these clunky, chunky things to a really slim, almost blade. And
these beautiful MP32 Mizunos.
Yeah.
A work of art.
Yeah.
And he hit them great. Best I've seen him hit the ball
that's good.
by far. So it was
well done, lads.
Yeah, for a winter round, man, really a lot of positives to take away.
And so what Pat will do, he'll come in today and he'll be a little outside in. So we're going to double down on getting Pat from the inside. Again, why swing is a little different is that golfers understand that when they are left on their own devices, they'll get a little armsy. They'll get a little outside in. But coming into swing, we've got metrics here and we'll get him back to the inside and he'll be away. Yeah,
good to go.
And news from the fairways, mate. News from the fairways. We had an interesting week again.
Yeah.
What should we do? Should we start with Pete? Why don't we start with Liv?
Yeah, okay.
The Dustin, who's ranked outside 250 in the world now.
Yeah.
I mean, how stupid's that? Just smashes a bit of Liv and shoots 12 under to win his 4 or 5 mil.
Individual title.
Loves that.
And I believe second year in a row.
Yeah, he's playing well. I mean, he's such a good player.
Like we said last week, he's ranked 200 some in the world rankings, but just took the individual title on.
Yeah, so I mean, he gets a start in the majors, obviously, because he's won the Masters. And I don't know what's going to happen with the PGA, actually.
Yeah.
The US Open, he gets a start, but I don't know about the British and the PGA. So anyway, let's not flog a dead horse. We know that there's some issues there. LPGA didn't have an event, and the DP Tour. This is why I love DP Tour. So we had on the DP Tour, Mr. Hoshino won, which is fantastic, Japanese golfer.
Yep.
And I just went through the top 10. We've got Japanese, French, German, Scottish, Welsh, Spanish, English, Danish. And I just love the fact that we've got a world tour.
I mean, right love there, are there any repeats? I think it was almost 10 different countries in the top 10 spots.
So really everyone's a little different. I know the American golf culture is very much focused on America, but as an Aussie, I just love seeing that we've got 10 different countrymen playing a golf tournament. And I believe, and I don't know Greg, I believe that's what Greg had in mind all along. Let's have a world tour. So the DP, shout out to you guys. And then PGA Tour, we had the waste management.
Yeah. Rowdy one.
There's a lot to unpack here. Let's keep it positive.
Yeah. But I think too, with the Super Bowl falling, starting right when they were going into either 18 or into the playoff. I mean, I think the true golf fans maybe stuck around and watched, but a lot of people trail off and they move to the Super Bowl, of course.
All right. So back it up a little bit. We had the waste management, and shout out to my dear mate James Niddies, who's now the broadcaster on the secondary tour, and Nitz, you should be on PGA Tour broadcast. He's so funny, James. Anyway, I remember James was leading that waste management on main tour probably about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And he said, and James is a very mentally tough guy. And he said it was the most nervous he's ever been on 16. He said it was just insane.
Yeah.
Like back then it probably wasn't as big as it is now. I think back then it was still 1 or 2 levels.
Okay.
He said like 50,000 people within 10 feet of you type
It's
of thing.
insane.
Insane.
It's got to be the noise that you would hear on 16. It's got to be louder for anyone playing a golf hole than any other hole.
Yeah. And then Scotty Scheffner nearly holed it.
Yeah.
In the last
put it
round.
to about a foot.
About a foot.
We didn't get the hole in one this year in the beer showers. And
copped an absolute negative hammering amongst the customer for the actual way the event was run. Just they said everyone was getting hammered, and it turned into a bit of a loosey-goosey. So I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if Waste Management this week are looking at their numbers and PR. And I mean, as I say, there's no bad. What is it? There's no such thing as bad PR. It's just
bad press,
bad press. But I feel as a bit of a purist, I guess, that it took away from the event. I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I like to see when golf gets a little bit more relaxed and less traditionally like serious.
It certainly was relaxed,
but it maybe went a little too far one end of the spectrum. But you know, I know we had a couple of swing members here who went and.
Actually, we haven't spoken to Henry yet.
I'm really curious to see how their experience was. You know, you can make your assumptions from watching on TV and what you see on Twitter. But I mean, I'm curious, him being there, boots on the ground.
So we'll report back next week after we speak to our 2 guys who went. And just shout out to Nick Taylor. I mean, the guy finished birdie, par, birdie.
Yeah.
Birdied first playoff hole with Mr. Hoffman, birdied the second playoff hole, and looked like, to your point, you said about 20 minutes ago, he could have birdied that every time he played it.
He just was nonstop. I mean,
he's a pressure machine.
Yeah, and he just was putting so well. He just hit the same shots over and over again. It was just like rinse and repeat.
Yeah,
he was going to win that tournament unless Charley Hoffman did something crazy.
I mean, Charlie's at my age. He's 48 and nearly 49, so he's got seniors in another, year and a half, and he's crushing it. I mean, he looked so much in control. It was lovely.
Yeah. And we were talking to a moment ago on 18. He had the longest drive of the day, 339 yards at 48 years old.
48 years old.
Yeah. The speed doesn't necessarily die off, or doesn't have to.
No. So there's a lot to unpack here. So we're shout out to Charlie. We thought you played so well. But Nick, the way he won the Canadian Open last year, when he drained that 4,000
and again, playoff, deep putt.
Gets it done.
Man, yeah. Broke the old Canadian kind of dry spell.
Yeah,
too.
70 plus years without a Canadian win.
Yeah, so pretty cool.
Oh, shout out to the KC in the house.
Yeah.
That means we're off to some fancy restaurant, Rosie and I, on the Joyce's. But the Super Bowl product was so good. I'm not sure if you were working or watched it, but I was a huge fan. I thought the whole thing was brilliant.
Yeah.
From the lead up to the man of the year to, I thought Usher did a great job.
Yeah, pretty fun.
My kids didn't love Usher.
Yeah, I think young crowds may not know, but I know when I saw like Ludacris pop up on stage, like, all right, this is awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, and some of those old songs I haven't heard in a while, but you kind of grow up on, or I did anyway, so it was sweet.
I thought Usher did a great job. I thought the roller skating was massive risk, and he pulled it off. Look, everyone's a Monday quarterback. They punted him for apparently slipping. He went under some dude's legs on roller skates in front of 40 million people.
Pretty damn good.
Pretty damn good. I can't remember. I can't think I'd get on a pair of roller skates and go under some guy's legs.
Yeah, hey, that's a big stage right there. Singing. Yeah, so I mean, it's a big production, but a lot of fun. A lot going on.
Of fun.
And second half of the game was pretty
awesome. It was lights out. So again, we look at like a Nick Taylor and a Mahomes, so calm, so present.
Really impressive.
Really impressive.
On that stage.
Yeah.
Be that collected and just, they're going to win.
Yeah.
They just,
Patrick Mahomes was just, Rosie's obviously was very passionate because obviously she grew up on a farm just south of KC. So very KC family. And Rosie was like, do you think they're going to get it done? There was not one part of me that didn't think he'd win. I mean, he is so calm and so poised, and he's brilliant. Like those 2 darting runs. So Tony Romo with a commentator, he just said, and again, I love listening to Tony's commentary because I learn. I don't know all the rules on footy, but he said they should never have let him run. They should have known that he was going to run those 2 plays to get back in that under 2 minutes. But he's so good.
Yeah, he just seems
Just
kind of like
gets it.
Nick Taylor. Like he's just going to keep doing what he has to do
Yeah.
until they win.
Yeah, really
and
impressive.
Yeah, pretty cool. You gotta respect it.
Yeah, so that's pretty insane, and we love the Kelsey story. I do think that elder brother. They had a snapshot of Jason, and he looked a bit solemn at the presentation of the trophy there, and one can't help that he might be toying with a retirement thought. And I don't know if he's ever won the Super Bowl, has he?
Not sure.
He did win one. The boss is telling us he won one.
Yeah.
And he just looked as though he was an athlete who had some stuff undone, but was, to me, and I don't know Jason obviously, but he looked like he was a little torn, like he's no spring chicken, and his body must. Shout out to all the NFL guys, like their bodies must be getting
the wear and
hammered.
tear has got to be up there.
The
with
wear
anything.
and tear. I mean, you did that as a Division I athlete. Your body got hammered, and that, I don't know if you saw, there was a play where some guy got coat hangered. He got tackled around the chest plate, and the defending athlete was running full pelt, and this poor guy got hammered. And I'm like, he's won the Super Bowl, but he's probably waking up so
he's going to
sore.
feel that tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. So shout out to that. No one appeared to get too injured, which was great. I always think of injuries first as a professional athlete, your body.
Yeah.
And I teach a chap who's part owner in one of the NFL teams. Won't say the name, and he tells me that his athletes, his return on investment's about 4 years.
Okay.
So if you're only returning on that investment 4 years of play, you know, we love when you're playing there for 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. Obviously, quarterback's a little different because they don't get hit as much.
Yeah.
So shout out to KC. That's their ticker tapes tomorrow, I believe.
Something like that, yeah. And then speaking of, red jerseys, we've got the launch yesterday of
Tiger
Sunday Red.
Sunday Red. So hot off the press, news from the fairways. What did you think? Obviously, it only dropped last night.
Yeah, so the promo video is pretty sweet. Yeah. Well done. And I mean, when you just put in context of all the things he's done and how iconic that Sunday Red, polo is, it's pretty cool. I think a lot of people are going to be excited to see that. The logo and the splitting up the Sunday Red.
15 lines
I'm unsure about
Tiger. That's his 15 majors.
Yeah, the 15 stripes.
I'm not a massive fan of Sun-Day-Red, but I haven't won 15 majors, so back in my box.
Yeah.
I think Sunday Red would be awesome.
Yeah.
But we're not quite sure of. Sun represents, obviously, get out and playing, and day is you play golf in the day.
Yeah.
And then red because of iconic Tiger.
Yeah,
so,
the old classic hunting people down or just taking away with the lead for so many years, as we saw.
And he's so smart. The whole team, Tiger team, they've got him playing the Genesis to launch his brand.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, the tournament that he hosts.
Interesting to see how he plays this week. There's a couple of hills involved in that golf course. So one would imagine that his lateral, you're talking about before, his lateral bend on his ankle's not great.
Yeah.
So we'll see how he plays. Obviously, he's launching his brand. We'll see how that all goes.
So it sounds like it's going to be a standalone brand, but kind of coming under the umbrella of TaylorMade.
Yeah.
Who's his club sponsor. So that makes a bit of sense.
I wonder if he's got capital investment in TaylorMade, because he certainly's doubled down on TaylorMade.
Yeah, you'd have to think in some regard.
I mean, if I'm Tiger, and we saw the glove had a logo, the hat, the clothing.
Yeah.
You got to think he's doing golf clubs, but maybe not.
Yeah, maybe. I know he has his, P7TW irons through TaylorMade. And I'm curious to see when they actually launch and have some products you can buy, what's on there.
I wonder if he's got the, what are we talking here? Monster. I wonder if he's still got Monster on his golf bag, or whether it's going to be.
Yeah.
How much is he going to double down on Sunday Red on his golf bag?
Yeah, we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised to see everything.
But it kind of ties back to what we were alluding to. The golf brand is just stale from a customer engagement TV point of view. Like, shout out to Nick Taylor. It's so impressive. But what I would love to see from a customer is, let's get back to the mic'd up options.
Yeah,
I think that's fantastic.
really like that. Yeah, I think it makes it a bit more exciting. You get way more information too on what those guys are actually seeing and doing out there on the course.
I mean, I think the PGA Tour, which gets back to SSG, I just think when people aren't golf tour players, there's a gap between improving the brand awareness and brand customer acquisition. It's all customer acquisition, right? How do we get more eyeballs watching golf?
Yeah.
And I think as good as the waste management was, and, you know, I'm not a massive fan of seeing some dude taking his shirt off and going in a mud bath.
Yeah.
But I would love to see that the PGA Tour say to their players, look, guys, if you're going to play on our tour being owned by the golf pros, then we're going to have to mic you up. And they can sit down pre-season and say, right, Nick might say, well, I'm going to do weeks 5, 6, 7. Tiger does weeks, or however many he's playing.
Yeah.
Rory does weeks, and I'm now looking at when Rory's playing specifically to see how important the event is. All I'm using is Rory as a litmus test. If Rory's not playing, I know that's not that important.
Yeah.
So he's playing this week. And maybe the PGA Tour can do more of that mic'd up fairways. I think that's really important.
I think it's so much more exciting to watch that way. And the other thing too, they had for a little while was the whoop strap.
Oh, I think
so you get the heart rate going. I mean, you imagine, you know, I'm thinking of like the players 17th hole, the island green, Sunday down to the wire, and you got their heart rate live on the TV. It's awesome to see.
I mean, imagine here's a stat, and again, it's just about customer engagement, customer acquisition. Imagine if we had Nick Taylor's whoop on Thursday, Friday on the 18th fairway, and then the playoff 1 and 2.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That would be amazing to see. Now, I know, what's that chap who's the rock climber who did the free climb?
Alex Hanold.
Alex. So imagine Alex's whoop, because apparently he doesn't have a big the gland that secretes enzymes that produces that adrenal, right? He simply doesn't have that in his brain.
Yeah.
So his brain's not getting as nervous as you and I
Yeah.
were doing a free climb.
Comes
So
in handy.
it would be fascinating to me to see if someone like a Nick Taylor, who appears to be a playoff machine,
And so
doesn't have
calm,
actually that mental
or is he
change.
just have it so under control that heart rate spiked, but
Is
he
it a
looks the
learned
exact
skill?
same as he did on Thursday? Yeah. It'd be fascinating
So
to see.
to me, that's where you could go with the PGA Tour. But I would like to think that the Steve Cohens of the world, and shout out, he's a brilliant man, but I don't think the Steve Cohens of the world is going to think like it, yet he's now got capital vested interest in the direction of the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
So I just would love the PGA Tour to think outside the box. To me, that would be fascinating.
Yeah.
Because they still are talking about Tiger, and they've got to move on.
Yeah.
Like, they've got to look at this kid, Nick Taylor, and go, oh my God, this guy's a machine.
Yeah.
Like, that was birdie, birdie, par, birdie, birdie, birdie finish.
Insane.
That's
to catch,
insane.
Charley Hoffman, which looked like no one, he was going to walk away with it unless someone caught him, and he just made it happen.
He made it happen.
Yeah.
And then Charley Hoffman, we wanted to touch on to bring it back to what we're doing here at Swing.
Yeah.
When he's walking up to the 18th tee, they're obviously calling his name. He's one ahead at this stage, and he picks his hat up. And as a result, as he goes to grab his hat, his shoulder scapula rides up his ribcage. And you and I talked about how poor his posture is.
Yeah.
And then you said to me about the heated vest.
Yeah. So
heated lumbar.
Yeah. And it's interesting, after a long career in PGA Tour, 48 years old, some wear and tear. I mean, right after he finished his round, he was just staying warm on the driving range in case someone caught up to him. Had like one of those heated lumbar braces on.
Yeah.
He's hitting balls with it, walked all the way up until he was on the tee box on 18 for first
So
playoff
it
hole.
suggests that he's getting a
Take it
little
off.
tight.
Yeah, and he just looks
Relaxes
up, based
the
on what we're
muscles.
seeing with like that right shoulder in particular, really down and kind of anterior tilted. Probably a compensation for stuff going on at the hips, and it makes no, surprise to me that his lower back caught him between that.
Here's where we think physical therapists, and certainly we don't profess trainers here at Swing. We like doctors of PT. So what I usually find as the guy who's the go-between between customer and Sean's brilliance getting them to move is, most of the time a customer comes into us with Charley, whose shoulder, certainly his right shoulder, his scapular bone is riding so far up his rib cage and up on the top of his shoulder complex. Most practitioners look at the shoulder, but you're a little different, that you'll look up and down the chain.
I suspect that whole shoulder scapula position is a counterbalance to probably something going on in his hips.
Yeah. Which would suggest he had, because of his lower back.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, well, lower back is clearly sore if he's using a heating brace. So I imagine, and it's one of those things, okay, so you can get his shoulder doing some things. He can pull it into a better looking position.
Yeah.
But his brain's holding it there for a reason. And my idea of actually addressing that would be, let's go find that deep down reason where it kicks off this whole myriad of postural compensations, and go address the root kind of deepest down layer, and then just unpack it from there until eventually that shoulder blade's actually incentivized to stay where it normally would.
So you're saying, from a layman, is that the reason the shoulder scapular bone rides up is because of another result?
Yeah. More of a secondary effect, as opposed to, oh, his shoulder must actually have an issue. And it could, but those postural things usually are coming from systematic involvement as opposed to just one thing.
I mean, with his right shoulder being so out of stability, aligned position, his thoracic mobility has to get super tight after the end of a round.
Yeah, you would think so. So it makes sense. You know, he's got to stay warm. He knows he's got to keep playing.
Yeah.
If he cools down, that first swing on the playoff hole is going to be a tough one.
Imagine face open, he's going to carve it right.
Yeah, but he came out, birdied first playoff hole.
Impressive.
Parred the second one, but Nick Taylor he wasn't going to take no for an answer.
Yeah, it was just brilliant. And Charley, I don't know him, but he seems like just a phenomenal individual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
17 years out on tour. He's never won the Waste Management Open. I presume his little contract is
so close.
Yeah, he would have had a pretty massive bump up to win his own event. And you mentioned something about how he walked, which I found interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, I was just kind of taking in the whole scenario, and he just walks very stiff. Like, his arms swing a little bit, but his body's just moving like a plank.
So we got to get Charley doing the Zoolander here in the city.
Yeah, you got to let things swing a little bit. But it's never going to change unless you get down to those root causes. So, you know, that's where, in my eyes, it's my job to find those and address that stuff. So the rest just falls into place.
So look, when you're out there, and it doesn't matter what town, what little country town or big city you're in, what we're finding here at Swing is that most people who have an injury, and let's face it, that's probably 40% of our customer base has some niggle, certainly as we get older. And we're trying to identify the niggle before it gets an injury, so that injury never occurs. But try to make sure that your practitioner, which is what we wanted to bring this episode about today, make sure your practitioner, like Sean here, looks at the holistic issue, not just the joint. And that's kind of why I built Swing, because everyone looked at my knees or my shoulders, but they should have looked at me. And I love how you do that. So Superbrain Katie, who's going to put our video up here. We got a really nice video. As I said, when he was walking up to 18, I mean, his shoulder was an absolute mess.
Yeah. So, you know, I find just very, very rarely, if ever, there's no isolated events in the body.
Yeah.
There's connection all throughout, and it's very easy to get focused tunnel vision on one thing, but you got to look at the whole thing and from a bigger picture, and then you can dive down into what needs addressing. But
love it.
Hey, a lot going on in the golf swing, so we need to make sure it's all on the same page.
Remember, what's our goal? Our goal is face less than path.
Yep.
Pretty simple.
Yep, there we go. All right, well, that wraps it up for today. But again, thanks everybody for listening. We really appreciate the support. Keep sharing it. Keep subscribing. And next week, we're going to be back with a little more talk.
Yeah. Beauty golfers, look, thanks for listening to Pivot the Path. And remember, your on-course enjoyment starts with the work you put into your entire game, so you can absolutely own your swing. Keep swinging, keep playing.
Yep. Stay safe in New York City if you're around, and we'll see you next week.